start to turn it around.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. As we go marching on, we are fighting Yankee soldiers who've enlisted for the war. We are fighting for the Union. We are fighting for the Lord. We can shoot a rebel father than a white man ever saw. As we go marching on, look there above the center where the flag is waving bright. We are going out slaving. We are bound for freedom and life. We need to show Jeff Davis how the Africans can fight as we go marching on. Singing glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. As we go marching on.
And welcome to Heal DC. This is Joni, and you were just listening to Sweet Honey in the Rock. A lot of those words, although they were singing about the Civil War, still very relevant today. I am excited and honored to introduce our guest for this 10 o'clock hour. But let me just also mention, right now we're on 2 hours these days. It won't be forever. But at the 11 o'clock hour, we'll be talking about the rally held on Friday, which was D-Day, in support of veterans. That's the 11 o'clock hour. But right now, I am, again, very honored to introduce C.R. Gibbs, a beloved historian, native Washingtonian, author of many books. Many people have heard him. I'm surprised that many of the younger folks do not know C.R. Gibbs. So we are going to do what we can to make sure that everybody in D.C. knows Mr. C.R. Gibbs. He's written one of the many things he's done. He did a 13-part series to PBS's The Civil War. He's been a frequent guest on PFW over the decades, often with Ambrose I. Lane Sr., and these days as well, Ambrose I. Lane Jr., as well as on this show, to Heal DC. He has a lot to share, and with that said, welcome, Mr. Gibbs. Uh-oh, can you hear me?
Can.
You cannot hear? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, welcome. I just introduced you, so welcome to our PFW audience.
I'm happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, we're going to try to invite you more. We need to be hearing you on a regular basis, the PFW audience. So you're going to speak today about at least 2 different topics, but I wanted to start out, I don't know if you might want to make a comment about what we heard happened over the weekend in Los Angeles with those ICE raids. I just wanted to quickly announce that I got word this morning that at 12 noon right here in D.C., there's going to be a rally to demand that the ICE raids are suspended, stop immediately. That's being convened by the DC labor movement folks, as well as CASA. It's going to be at 12 noon at the Department of Justice, 1001 Pennsylvania Avenue. And again, that's with the Metro Washington AFL-CIO. So that's to protest against the really quite fascistic activities that are taking place. But unfortunately, it's not totally new. But welcome, Mr. Gibbs.
Yes, Joni, you're right. It's not totally new. I'm reflecting on, and I know we'll talk about the Underground Railroad in Anacostia, and in a little bit. But I was reminded that it was not uncommon for the police to break in to the houses of black people who were working on the Underground Railroad in D.C. And we sometimes it's not taught in the schools, and we're not going to get into why that isn't. But the important thing is that once you know history, you know that there really is, as the poet said, nothing really new under the sun. They did this in D.C., led by a particularly vicious man. Some people called him Captain Goddard. And he was the kind of individual that he was a fully fleshed member of the slave-holding aristocracy in the nation's capital. They don't much teach that, but it's important that we get the word out, that the battle that you see playing out in Los Angeles continues and in many ways was presaged by what was happening here in the nation's capital and in the Deep South and in places even in the North, where people who just wanted to be free, who just wanted to have an opportunity, ran into people who didn't believe that we should have either. And that battle is an old battle and will continue until the day of peace and comity comes upon us.
Absolutely. And let's just quickly announce, Mr. Gibbs, and we'll announce this at the end of the show as well. Thankfully, you speak, I think it's at least once a month or often at a DC library, and you have a speaking engagement coming up, I think it's next week. So share with our listeners now, and we will repeat it again, where people can hear you next week, live in person.
I am every third Tuesday of the month. I am at 6 o'clock at the Woodridge Library. The Woodridge Library. Now, please, y'all, do not drive to Woodbridge, Virginia. We're talking about Woodridge in Northeast D.C., roughly 18th and Rhode Island Avenue. And on Tuesday, I believe it's the 17th, I will be doing Emancipation USA. And what it is it's a comparison and contrast of how freedom came to the nation's capital, how it came to Maryland and Virginia and Texas. So you get a bunch of them all at one time. Again, it's Emancipation USA. I'll never forget this particular presentation because I was asked to do it at what we call INMOC, the African American Museum of History and Culture down on the mall. And so that keeps it certainly special with me. But so you can sort of put these things in the proper historical perspective, and so that you can understand the overlapping impact of them. Come on down to the Woodridge Library. Again, not Woodbridge, Virginia, but in D.C., in Northeast D.C., just at 18th and Rhode Island Avenue at 7 o'clock. Excuse me, at 6 o'clock. Let me get it right. So come on down, check it out, and listen to the process, learn about the process, which is we're still fighting for full freedom. But it's important to see how this got started. Who were some of the people that helped us in those critical days, and something that, remember, things have changed. We can no longer assume, they'll get it in school, so you can put your feet up and assume someone else will teach your children. I believe it was Brother Malcolm who said, how many people let their enemies teach their children. So we've got to do that. It's really simple. We have to do that job. We did it before. We're doing it now, and more of us will be involved in the education and, if you will, reclamation of the minds of our children. We've got to do that.
Absolutely. So, listeners, again, that is a week from tomorrow. And I believe it is June 17th, Tuesday.
June 17th.
Yes, Tuesday at 6 p.m. And I'm always delighted to see so many PFW listeners attending. So the room can fit a few more of you, and it'll be quite an important discussion. So we're going to talk about at least two things today. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about D-Day and African Americans' involvement with D-Day. And D-Day was this past Friday, June 6th. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about the Underground Railroad history that people may not know, and the linkage with an event that's happening on Saturday with Adasi, African. Well, maybe you can say it.
Well, Adasi is if you leave it at that and keep it simple,
yes,
more people are likely to remember. And you come across the bridge. There's a wonderful celebration. We have and by the way, Adasi stands for African Diaspora Ancestral Commemoration Institute. And so there is the 33rd annual Maiafa commemoration and Riverwalk healing ceremony. And we tend to associate the Underground Railroad with Harriet Tubman and people outside of D.C., but this happened here as well. And if you go to just a little place, you know it well as you come off the bridge into Anacostia. We're talking about the intersection of Martin Luther King and Marion Barry. For you old-timers, that would be Good Hope Road and Martin Luther King. There is a building, let me give you the infallible landmark, which is a building called, appropriately enough, Enlightenment. And next to the Enlightenment building is a plaque done by Adasi, and it's beautiful. It is carved, it's bronze, and it tells the story of the struggle, focusing on the Underground Railroad to the nation's capital, which we don't do enough of. So we don't have to go to deep into Maryland or Virginia. This is something that we can sympathize and empathize with right here, right? Everybody knows where I'm talking about. And if you need another landmark near the old Anacostia liquor sign, if you can make it there, if you can make it across that bridge, the bridge that meant so much to so many people who risked their lives to get out of the suffering of slavery in Maryland and to get it. Not that D.C. was perfect. Got to understand, it was dangerous. That individual that I talked about, Captain Goddard and other people. I mean, he did something similar. Not only did he break into homes, he broke into anything where he thought freedom-seeking progressive blacks and whites went. He did something similar at the intersection of Eastern Avenue, okay, and going right in, and Georgia and Eastern. He did that in the summer of 1850. If you can imagine, you're in a carriage, probably the lights are turned down on the outside perimeter of the carriage, and then right as you cross from one jurisdiction into another, someone threw a fence rail into the rear wheel. The man, a brother in the struggle, a white man named William Chaplin, was driving the coach. He was pulled down and thrown off the top of the coach. The bloodlust was up in the posse. They wanted the two freedom-seeking black men who were inside the coach. They, brothers and sisters, they stabbed the exterior of the coach. They shot into the exterior of the coach, and almost in something that sounds like it would come out of today. Then they blamed the people who were trying to get away on the Underground Railroad as, they were the ones doing the shooting. So some things just simply don't change at all. And this is right at the intersection. Y'all have been across it, past it. so many times, Eastern Avenue and Georgia Avenue. The good news is that they have put a wayside sign up on the right-hand side near Jessup Blair Park so that you can see what happened on that extraordinary night in the history of the Underground Railroad right there on the border between Maryland and D.C. I wish that they would take the children there so that they could see it, and they wouldn't associate the stories of the Underground Railroad with just somebody that had happened in a book somewhere away from here. No, this is here in the streets and byways that you walk and drive through today. This is part of the history as much as the names of our streets, avenues, and boulevards. And we need to embrace that history. It's the history of the struggle. It is a history that, again, you cannot assume they're going to get that in school. Put that out of your heads. Take your babies, take your children, your families, and so they can learn the history of the struggle in a way that will inspire them to share it, that they can take their children to a if you will, a temple of freedom right there at Georgia and Eastern Avenue, or coming back closer to the Anacostia River. Can we believe that these kinds of things happened? And thanks to Adasi, and again, that is the African Diaspora Ancestral Commemoration Institute, they're going to tell the story. And they've done this in a marvelous, well-executed plaque right there near the intersection of Marion Barry and Martin Luther King. What more appropriate place could you put a sign of the freedom struggle that at the same time is near the former site of the bridge that hung between slavery and freedom? So I wanted to encourage you that.
Yes. Oh, and let me just mention.
I'm sorry.
CR, if I can just announce that is on Saturday. That's going to be happening from 10 to 1. The people are meeting at Union Temple Baptist Church, and I think it's 11:30 is the River Walk. And of course, our own Tony Browder is going to be one of the speakers. This will be announced several times this week. I think Brother Kaba who's on from 3 to 5 today will be talking about it. And of course, Tony Browder can be heard these days at PFW at 5 p.m. I'm sure he will be speaking about it again. So continue on, Mr. Gibbs.
Well, I wanted people to also realize that there was, if you will, right at the bridge and on the D.C. side, we actually had a nest of Underground Railroad operatives, if you will. For those of you who have interest in that sort of thing, there was a young man named Thomas Smallwood, who was a linchpin in the local Underground Railroad. And he lived about 4th Street, just right down from the bridge. He was involved in it. I think he was even one of the people that had his house broken into by Captain Goddard. But that didn't stop him. The point was that didn't stop him. And we can't let the forces of oppression stop us today. We've got to stand. One of the things about this is, can we do less than our ancestors? Time and time again, you've heard people on this station talk about how is it that the people who had so little were able to do so much, and we who have so much are able or continue to do so little. So we've got to use the mark that was set by our ancestors. And so coming down from the bridge over the Anacostia and making a left turn, coming down toward the other bridge, which Frederick Douglass never used because it wasn't there at the time of his life, but I appreciate the fact that they named it. These were places in the Underground Railroad where you literally risked your life. You risked the lives of your family members. They weren't giving out roses because you were working for freedom. And again, some would say that's that's the way it is today, where we must be as dedicated, we must be as vigilant, we must be fearless in terms of fighting for freedom then and now. Young folk, within the sound of my voice, please don't get it twisted. Just because you hear doesn't mean things have changed to that great degree. That the struggle for freedom and justice and opportunity is as vital and as necessary today, in your day, as it was in the days of our ancestors. So I wanted to share that and let you know that this is accessible history, that what's going to happen the next Saturday on the 14th, that's accessible. So come down to, and again, you're going to hear people talk about it many times on this station.
Absolutely.
And
it's also going to be, it's all, and Mr. Gibbs, it's also going to be, I think, accessible on your computer. It says adasiancestors.org. So if you can't make it out in person, I believe you can listen to it. And Mr. Gibbs, maybe we could consider some kind of way for PFW as we move forward to help organize some gatherings or journeys with young people to show them these spots. We have organizations and people that can probably help do that. That needs to be done. I must say, although I was raised in New York City, my parents certainly took me, since one of my first memories was going to visit some of these Underground Railroad sites in New York. And of course, growing up in New York with the subway, I had to learn what they really meant when they talked about the Underground Railroad. So it's still important to see if we can organize this as an ongoing activity in this community moving forward. So anything else you want to share, Mr. Gibbs, about this part of history? Are you going to be there on Saturday?
I will stick my head in for a minute or two and be there as well. It's just that if we don't tell the story, we have to take command of the story, people of goodwill, and make sure we can't leave this too important for you to leave it to someone else. And again, you don't have to go out and become a PhD or a no D will do. But if the D stands for dedication, by all means, join us. Come on out, learn this story, and tell. And that's only part of it. Looking at Anacostia River, we know that was a body of water that was involved in, and people were concerned about defending it. Yes, even Anacostia from attacks by the rebels. So there was even a defenses of the Anacostia in the Union Army and Navy, and there was even a Union ship named the USS Anacostia. So
wow.
And that vessel participated in the protection of the waters, particularly as we got closer and closer to the Chesapeake Bay. And again, these are stories, and yes, there were brothers from Anacostia and from D.C. that were part of what's called the Potomac Squadron, or the Potomac Fleet, that helped to fight to protect the waters of the humble Anacostia from Confederate depredations. And by the time you got closer to the bay, I mean, there were Confederate gun batteries. And in fact, that was, of course, one of the ways they fought. No less than the Benning Bridge. They had the Benning Road Bridge was patrolled during the Civil War, of course, by the Union Army. And at the beginning of the war, they would not let black people across. We know of one group of freedom seekers who made it somewhere from the interior of Maryland all the way down to the Benning Road Bridge and were turned back. And I believe they were held for their masters. This is that history where we can't let one slowdown, we can't let one seeming defeat turn us around. So I'll leave you with that. And that you know that there's so much more rich history under our feet.
Absolutely. And again, it's a blessing. We're blessed to have Mr. C.R. Gibbs right here with us in the District of Columbia, native Washingtonian, sharing this critical history. And we're going to do what we can to make sure Mr. Gibbs is on even more frequently here on WPFW. And I want to also share, as you've been hearing, Sunday, June 22nd, PFW is going to have a very exciting Jazz and Justice event all day long at Malcolm X Park from 12 noon to 9 p.m. So there's going to be all kinds of not only music, but discussions and activities. So make sure you check out all the information that we're going to be sharing in the next 2 weeks about that upcoming event. So, Mr. Gibbs, do you want to move on to talk about D-Day? I must admit, I did not even realize that it was D-Day on Friday, even though I went to a rally, which we'll hear about in the second hour, that was organized by Unite for Veterans on Friday, June 6th. So, of course, not surprising, the role of I'm sure you're going to share the heroic role of African Americans during D-Day is not discussed much at all. So we're happy that you can enlighten us and share that those critical stories.
Well, thank you, Joni. The emblematic of how we tend to get left out of history can be demonstrated in a D-Day Hollywood movie. Some years ago, in the 60s, Hollywood produced a film called The Longest Day. And it showed you about many white units that were involved in the landings on the coast of France on the 6th of June, 1944. And so the beginning of the operation, that's D-Day. That's D-Day. If you wanted to look for a black man in that Hollywood movie, here's what you have to do. You have to sit in your seat until the end of the movie, just before the credits roll. And on the left-hand side of the screen, there is, and keep your eye on the left hand. Don't blink. Don't blink. There's one black guy that is shown marching off the beach. That's not the way it went down. And the Afro chain of newspapers, God bless the Afro, they produced a book during World War II called, I believe, This Is Our War. And it talked about the brothers who drove trucks on Omaha and Utah Beach. They risked their lives. We have the extraordinary example of the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion. That was an African-American Army unit that saw combat on Omaha and Utah Beach. And these were the brothers that put up these big sausage-shaped dirigibles, if you will, over the beach. Their job was to protect the landing forces from attacks by German airplanes. The French recognized the members of the balloon battalion and medics from that unit before the American government did. Again, it is amazing how we tend to get left out. For those who want to get a better sense of it, if you run across pictures of the landings, particularly at Bloody Omaha, and you happen to see a big silvery object in the sky that looks like a sausage, that would be most likely the work of the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion. This was a black unit whose mission was, you can't protect the beach if you get there late. You've got to be among the earliest landing parties on the beach so that you can put up your balloons and you can protect the beach. So, and the cable is attached to the land, again, in order to trap the German airplanes. Well, these brothers were just extraordinary. I mean, you're talking about a hydrogen-filled barrage balloon, perhaps about 200 feet or so to to defend soldiers landing on the beaches. They got a commendation by Eisenhower for conducting, quote, its mission with courage and determination, and proved an important element of the air defense team. They served in 140 days in France. And in late July 1944, Battery A of the 320th moved from Omaha Beach to the port city of Cherbourg in France. I mean, these guys were everywhere. And it seems that the major sustained coverage of the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion was in the black press. So take when you get a chance, you Google them if you don't know about them. They were unique at Normandy for two reasons. It was the only American barrage balloon unit in France, and secondly, it was the first black unit in the segregated American Army to come ashore on D-Day. 5 battalion medics were the first to land on Omaha Beach at approximately 9 in the morning. A wounded medic, Waverly Woodson, was nominated for the Congressional Medal of Honor. Just to show you, we were there, not in the final waves. And I'm thinking about this, and it's personal to me, because I once heard a black DJ say, "Oh man, when it came to D-Day, the brothers stood back and let the white boys." No. That was an unfortunate remark. I called the station to register my displeasure at their inaccuracy.
Yes. And see, let me just let people know you're listening to WPFW 89.3 FM. This is me, Joni, with To Heal DC. We're honored to have Mr. C.R. Gibbs on with us for the hour until 11 o'clock. In the second hour, 11, we're going to be talking about the rally last Friday on D-Day with veterans. But this is very obviously extremely important what you're sharing, Mr. Gibbs. Do you know maybe roughly how many black veterans were involved with D-Day?
I don't know exactly how many, but I know that it was larger than just the size of the 320th. And again, one of the reasons I know this is because of the reporting of the Afro-American chain of newspapers and their production at the end of the war of a priceless book called This Is Our War, which now I checked with them and bought my own copy. I think it was last year, the year before, so that I would have that priceless history, a copy of it for myself, because there were also brothers who were driving, 2.5-ton trucks along the beach at D-Day. We participated in other landings, but because this was the largest amphibious operation in American military history, it has a special importance for people who keep a track of those things. And again, I recognize that there are those among us who, that's the military. But nevertheless, when you shed your blood, when you put your life on the line, I will never forget being in speaking at St. Petersburg, Florida, and watching how those old men, they were old men then, a few years ago, how they handled their military service with great pride. However controversial it may be today, they served. They were men, as our Civil War veteran once said, we were natural men. We served. We didn't shirk our responsibilities. We showed we were as brave and intelligent, as courageous as anyone else. And just to prove that, I just want to share a little clip of an article about a man named Staff Sergeant Melville Jordan, who landed on D-Day in June 1944. And this is from the Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Friday, December 21st, 1945. And it goes on to say that he landed on D-Day on Omaha Beach, in the stretches of the shoreline in Normandy. and he will be here today or tomorrow. I mean, he will be in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, because half an hour after he got off his transport, he was in New York. A brother was celebrating a bit. Then he headed home to hug his wife and his parents, Mr. and Mrs. A.M. Jordan. So if anybody knows the Jordan family of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, you can tell them Mr. Gibbs is reading about Sergeant Jordan, Sergeant Melville Jordan. And he was after he left, he was in what was called a port battalion. These are the men they were the man behind the gun. So we had brothers who were serving, like in the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion, facing enemy fire. We also had thousands more who, through no fault of their own, were relegated to what they called in World War I the services of supply. These were the port companies who helped to load or unload these vessels. They were there who only stood and waited. They were there because their courage demanded that they stand by and be called on if they were needed. And Sergeant Melville Jordan of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, was one of the individuals who landed at Normandy Beach. He went across with them, served in a supply unit called the Port Battalion. The battalion was under strafing. He says that the Germans shot at him while he was on Omaha Beach. He says 6 days. He said, and that half of the men in his unit were killed. Jordan moved half the men. He also landed and saw the blood in the sand as the men were moved back and forth. He was on the docks at Antwerp when the Germans bombed there. So yes, our men. And this is in no way goes against the story of sisters. One of my own aunts that helped to raise me during World War II loaded bombs in a depot in Delaware. And she says that the gunpowder on the bombs, these are American bombs to be dropped on the Germans or the Japanese, they turned the palms of her hands yellow and the whites of her eyes.
Wow.
My point being is that, there are all kinds of ways that the brothers and the sisters served. We have to tell those stories. For many of us, again, this is something that is sacred, something that has to be told, and nothing that we can take for granted.
Absolutely. And I must say, in the 11 o'clock hour, the bottom of the 11 o'clock hour, we're going to be hearing from a sister who is in Cleveland she's going to be sharing some stories about that you never hear about Black women during World War II. So stay tuned for that. And Mr. Gibbs, is any of this history in the Smithsonian African American Museum?
Some is there, and I'm sure they have more that they could put out and make available to the public. I remember the anticipation about the opening of the museum. And an elderly gentleman used to call me periodically. How he got my number, I never knew, Joni. But he said, listen, I'm calling you. I want you to I never met this man. I never knew his full name. And he said, I'm calling you. I want you to tell me because I want to send some of my things to the Black Museum. That's what he said. I want to send some of my things to the Black Museum. And I think a short time after the opening of the museum, he must have been able to do it because he stopped calling me. But again, can you imagine? He had been waiting for this for years. Calling a man that he, to my knowledge, I didn't know him, he didn't know me, but he got my number from somewhere. We cannot underestimate the importance of this story of this struggle. This is the largest conflagration, if you will, to strike this planet, referring to World War II. Many of you have items, you have uniforms, you have stories of the men and women who served. Save those. Don't sell them, save them. And so that you can pass them down through your family so that they can be as precious, not only to your family, but to the country as you can possibly make them. Be your own custodian for a time. Make sure your grandchildren see them and touch them and protect them as well. Make them part of the effort. This is history that, again, if we don't take care of it, we are helping to super add to the crime of people who would traduce and destroy our history.
That's absolutely correct. And again, we are blessed to listen today for the hour to Mr. C.R. Gibbs, our beloved historian, native Washingtonian, and we're so thankful to have him right here on our airwaves. And Mr. Gibbs, it was interesting at this rally on Friday on D-Day, there was a flyer being passed around, and unfortunately I can't put my hands on it right now, but they were warning people and letting people know that this so-called president is trying to erase even more some of this history of soldiers and of veterans. What you're describing, they're doing whatever they can to erase all of this even more than it already is. So I'm sure we'll be able to share that information that they were sharing, if not today, then in the future. But it's quite something. And if we had time, Mr. Gibbs, I know that there are people listening who had relatives that fought in World War II, particularly African-American folks who had relatives in that war. I don't know if we can sneak in a call or two, but we thank you and we honor you for sure. So keep going.
Well, I wanted
Mr.
to before we go, just two people who saw the courage of the brothers and sisters who served in World War II. Norman Lear. Some of you will know that name. The Hollywood producer, All in the Family, the Jeffersons. He was in some of those bombers during World War II, and he talked about the relief he would feel when he saw the red tails, when he saw the Tuskegee Airmen show up with the red tails on their planes, because he knew he was going to be protected. That stayed with him and proved to be a motive force in how he became progressive in terms of the depictions of black people in the on television, because he had seen the courage of these men in their flying machines, if you will, their P-38s and P-47s, P-51s. He knew that these men were fearless. And the other person I would mention, and finally, is the great Hollywood director, which he had done more with his opportunities, but I guess he considered himself having told some portion of the story. His name was John Ford. If we have any Hollywood folk in here that are familiar with them, he did a film focusing on the black soldiers, the Buffalo Soldiers, called Sergeant Rutledge. But he was on the beach on D-Day, and he says, and I'll close with this, he says, I remember one colored man in an amphibious vehicle. It's called a duck, loading with supplies. He dropped them on the beach, unloaded, went back for more. I watched him fascinated. Shells are all around him. The Germans were really after him. He avoided every obstacle and just kept going back and forth, completely calm. I thought, by God, if there's any man who deserves a medal, that man does. And that was the great Hollywood director, John Ford, talking about something that he saw with his own eyes. Again, we have to testify, y'all. We have to tell our history, whether it's ancient, whether it's modern, whatever it may be. We must be this generation's tellers of the stories, Jegnas, Jelly Mooses, griots. We must all be engaged.
Absolutely. We still have about 5 minutes left, thankfully, Mr. Gibbs. Let me just ask you a question about that film. Say the name of the film again that you were discussing. John Ford's.
The Longest Day. Yeah. Again, you if you don't watch any of it until the end, you can't afford to miss it. Right before the credits roll, keep your eyes focused on the soldiers marching off of what is supposed to be one of the D-Day beaches. And again, on the left-hand side of the screen, you will see one black soldier. And, of course, the Army was segregated. So how this brother got there in Hollywood's telling of the story, we don't know, but maybe somebody got a guilty conscience. I can't say, but it did show one guy as the movie's going on, one black man on the left-hand side of the screen marching off into France as a result of the successful prosecution of the D-Day landings.
And I'm thinking, I don't know if this is related, but right after World War II, there was, of course, the McCarthy period where Hollywood writers were banned from being shown. So I don't know if this is connected with any of these stories, but
no, we don't know. But what we can say is that the heroism of African American soldiers was, in fact, seen by people who should have been more volatile in telling the story. But at least we can share that these two individuals, John Ford and Norman Lear, were affected by what they saw and that they never forgot it. They were able to recall the courage that they had seen, that they had witnessed for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. And of course, these days, when we think about reparations, certainly reparations are due for the veterans of that World War II. And as many listeners do know, that when they came back and being heroes from the war, and I hate to even say that, of course, what happened meant there were lynchings that took place of those veterans.
In uniform, including a soldier whose eyes were put out. He was blinded in a racially motivated attack. I would also say, I mentioned the medics from the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion. One medic, Waverly Woodson, may have saved the lives of as many as 200 soldiers on the beach at Omaha. I mean, he black and white soldiers. His officer recommended him for a DSC, that's a Distinguished Service Cross. And this is on D-Day. This was courage displayed on D-Day. 200, perhaps as many as 200 soldiers. I mean, they ultimately gave the brother a Purple Heart. He was approved to get a bronze medal in 1945, but wasn't awarded it, being redeployed out of Europe. So the feeling is prevalent among Negroes that had Woodson been of another race, the highest honor, a Medal of Honor, would have been granted him. So we've
Definitely.
got again, the story goes on and on and on. Joni, I want to thank you for being gracious enough to give me an opportunity to share some of my research and sources with you today.
Well, it is my honor and our honor to do so. And let's remind listeners, they can hear you live in person a week from tomorrow. That is Tuesday, June 17th at 6 p.m. at the Woodridge Library. And Mr. Gibbs, just repeat what you'll be talking about. And people can come hear you.
A lecture called Emancipation USA. And it is the story of how freedom came to the district, to Maryland, Virginia, and Texas. So it's putting him in place in the struggle, these steps to freedom that ultimately resulted in the 13th Amendment.
Wow. And that is 6 p.m. sharp at Woodridge Library, 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. And they definitely need to close at 8 p.m. So you want to be there and get your front row seats or your back row seats. Meet some of the other PFW listeners who I know will be there. So this is, of course, next week will be Juneteenth week. And Mr. Gibbs will be integrating all of that into his discussion, I'm sure. So again, we are honored to have you, Mr. Gibbs. And I know I'm looking forward to seeing you. If not before, I hope to see you a week from tomorrow at the Woodbridge Library, 6 p.m. And anything else you want to say about how people might keep in touch with you? Or
Well, they can always, of course, go to portofharlem.net and look for me on that website. Brother Wayne Young does his best to take good care of me.
Yes, he does.
I'm off doing one thing or another, but thanks to him, you always have access to my schedule. There are portions of lectures and articles that are right there at portofharlem.net/C Gibbs. But if you forget the /C Gibbs, you go to Port of Harlem. He's made a way for you to find me if you can make your way to portofharlem.net.
Wonderful. Okay, Mr. Gibbs, you may want to hang with us as we go out with the closing song, and then we're going to be coming back at 11 o'clock talking about the rally last Friday with veterans on D-Day. And again, this Saturday, well, there's a lot going on. But let's go. I want to thank Mike Nacella, our wonderful engineer. And let me mention again, today at 12 noon, there is an emergency rally demanding that the ICE raids be stopped immediately. That's going to be 12 noon at the Department of Justice, which is 1001 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest, and that is being organized by the Metropolitan Washington AFL-CIO and CASA. So let's go out with Sweet Honey and the Rock Sojourners Battle Hymn.
We are done with holding on. We are colored Yankee soldiers, just as sure as you are born. When the rebels hear us shouting, they will think it's Gabriel's horn as we go marching on. They will have to pay the wages, the wages of their sin. They will have to bow their foreheads to their colored gift in hand. They will have to give us house room, or the roof will tumble in as we go marching on. We're singing glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. As we go marching on. We behest the proclamation. Rebels, hush it as you will. Then the birds will sing to us, hopping on the cotton hill. The possum of the gum tree couldn't keep it still as he went climbing on. Abraham has spoken, and the message has been sent. The prison doors have opened, and out the prisoners went to join the slave army of African descent as we go marching on. Hallelujah, glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. As we go marching on.
The black rose is traditionally linked to death, loss, mourning, and grief.
Welcome to the second hour this week of To Heal DC. This is Joni. We're going to be focusing on the rally held last Friday, June 6th, D-Day. And I think Chuck Hicks, Chuck, are you there? If you are, so jump in and say hi to everybody.
Yeah, I am, Joni.
Okay, glad you can be with us for this important discussion about what the veterans did last Friday. We're going to be speaking with, in a moment, a person named Kevin Magget with the organization called Veterans Action Now. But until he joins us, I'm also very happy to welcome Paul Asadebe with the Federal Unionist Network. No stranger to those of you who are listening to this show. He's very active with the Federal Unionist Network Fund and was there on Friday. And we're going to share a little bit about what that rally was like, the spirit of the rally, and a little bit about that song we just heard. Welcome, Paul.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you can be here. And I'm sure you may know that Labor, the Metropolitan Washington Labor Council, has convened an emergency rally today at 12 noon to demand an immediate cease of the ICE raids. The rally is going to be outside the Department of Labor on Pennsylvania Avenue. That's
Department of
convened.
Justice.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say?
Labor. Labor on the mind.
Yes, I'm moving too fast, but that is convened by SCIU, CASA. So those of you who are hearing this, you may want to go and find out about that rally. So, Paul, I'm glad that I saw you on Friday. Share with us a little bit the spirit of that rally. It was quite energetic. Quite encouraging to see the signs that people were carrying, and just the whole spirit, and the music that we heard. That group called, and you can help me with this, Paul.
The Dropkick Murphys.
Yes. So tell our listeners, if you'd like, about them and why that was so meaningful to many of us.
Yes, so I'll start with the Dropkick Murphys. They are a punk band from the Boston area that's really active in all types of pro-democracy, pro-labor movements. And they kind of blend the history of traditional labor music with modern punk music. And that's what they did at the rally. They played a version of Which Side Are You On? They had new original songs that were labor focused and focused on fighting back against all of the authoritarian power grabs that we're seeing right now. And as a punk person myself, I really loved that combination of the political aspect, the community aspect, and just good, loud music. And that's, I saw a lot of people in the crowd who, I don't know if they're typically into punk music, but they were having a great time.
Well, I must say I'm not particularly into punk music at all, but I was so moved by what they were singing, and I think they were capturing the spirit of the thousands of people who were out there.
Absolutely.
I often brings me to tears because to hear them singing a whole different way of singing, "Which Side Are You On?" And also even "We Shall Overcome," and I must admit, "We Shall Overcome" these days, I don't often like to play it, but their version of "We Shall Overcome," I mean, They have the anger and the commitment that we have to change this society and world of ours. And that music was really incredible. And
their version of "We Shall Overcome," it's not like waiting for that to happen. It's we have to make it happen. And that's what I loved about it. Exactly.
And if we will play it, maybe not today, but in the future, we're going to be playing their version of "We Shall Overcome." And one out of the many things that was very inspiring, Paul, I don't know if you felt this way about the rally. It was, we do not talk enough in this country about class issues. We do talk about race, which is important, we should, but we often don't talk about class. And it was obvious that the veterans and the allies of the veterans were there representing the working class. And they were
Yes.
they were very happy to do so. I'm going to read some of the signs, but that was, and I go to a lot of rallies, as you do too, Paul, but I was quite proud and excited of that aspect of the rally. Did you feel that way?
Yes, they directly called it out. I think someone up there talked about how if you look out in the crowd, you see a lot of veterans, you see a lot of working class people. You don't see any billionaires in that crowd, and they didn't see any when they were serving either. It's working class people who go out there to protect people and defend freedom, and those are the exact people who were in the crowd, seeing that it's under attack here at home, and it's under attack by people who use veterans as a prop. But with the proposed cuts, with the fact that they're asking people to go out into the streets and like police and attack Americans right now as we speak, these are not people who actually care about those things or working people of any type. And the people definitely called that out.
Absolutely. And at the bottom of the hour, we're going to be hearing about a town hall meeting that's taking place tomorrow, Tuesday, June 10th, from 5:30 to 7:30, organized by the Federal Unionist Network and many other community groups. So stay tuned for that in a moment. But let me see if we have our other guest, Kevin. Yes, we do. Kevin Meggitt is calling in from New York City, the founder and CEO of a group called Veterans Action Now. I had the pleasure to hear him at the very end of the rally. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Better hearing you. And I'm glad you're going to be on for at least a few minutes with Paul Asadebi with the Federal Unionist Network, and your organizations kind of go well together, Veterans Action Now. First of all, well, I'm going to ask you what were some of your reactions and feelings about that very powerful rally. But let's start with just, or not just, but sharing with the listeners, what is Veterans Action Now?
Oh, well, thank you. But Veteran Action Now is it's an advocacy group that advocates for veterans. The one thing I would say that veterans don't have across the board is advocacy. And who better to advocate for a veteran than a veteran? So, a lot of these VFWs and American Legions, a lot of them are bounded by a 501c3, which doesn't allow them to be political. Veteran Action Now is for profit. So therefore I pay taxes to say what I want to say and do what I want to do. And the agenda is very veteran based.
Okay, and you've been around for a couple of years. I'm going to just share some of the, and Paul or Kevin, you can jump in as well. Some of these signs at the rally, and I must say, again, I go to a lot of rallies. A lot of times the signs are done by different organizations, and so you see a lot of the same signs. Many of these signs were just individual people making their own signs up. So some of them, out of the many, Veterans Against Trump, there were a lot of those signs using different words, some of which we can't say over the air. Proud Americans Ashamed of Trump, Cuts to Veteran Care, a national disgrace. And then there were quite a number of impeach Trump signs. Support a veteran, not a fascist. And again, the word fascist was discussed a lot at the rally, and there is a new organization called Veterans Fighting Fascism, and we will have them on sometime in the future. Support a veteran, not a fascist, which is a sign I saw. Disabled vets, we are not expendable. A legacy of fighting fascism, the fight must go on. Don't blame me. I didn't vote for the fascists. So before we get into more details, Paul, did you also notice that about the signs? And Paul was standing out there for hours with, of course, his very important banner of Federalist Unionist Network. So I don't know if you had a chance, Paul, to walk around and see some of those signs or anything you might want to say
Yeah,
about
there
the.
was
Uh-huh.
there was a lot of creativity and anger. A lot of people just like not wanting to be used as props, as I mentioned before, because um, this administration and that whole side of the aisle often try to kind of claim a monopoly on caring about veterans, advocating for veterans. But these were veterans speaking in their own voices, saying that we don't want to be used in that way, and you are not honoring the promise that you made to us through these cuts, through the things that you're asking us to do. Um, and that was a lot of what I heard the most anger around, just the breaking of the promise, because people were told that if they served, they'd be taken care of, and that they would get to continue their service domestically through working for the federal government, for example, or just like being here protecting their communities. And instead, they're being fired en masse. They're having their benefits cut while being told that they're not being cut, and they're being asked to follow illegal orders here now. So that created a lot of the anger that you saw there, and the anger is fully justified.
Absolutely. And can you share, and Kevin can do this as well. We haven't really heard enough about the proposed cuts to the VA and to the benefits that veterans are entitled to. Paul, do you want to cover that briefly?
Sure. So what they're trying to do is essentially stealth cuts while pretending that they're not doing it. So they've already tried to fire probationary employees that kind of bring in new energy and new expertise to the agencies. They're trying to do reductions in force, which could cut up to 83,000 additional jobs. And these would be all across the board. Their big claim is that these won't affect mission critical work, but everything, these people were hired for a reason. They're doing things that are critical to keeping the lights on at the various VA buildings, to keeping medical supplies stocked, to actually being on the end of the phone when someone is calling in a crisis and is thinking about ending their life. You need a person, not an AI, to be on the other side of that call. And you need specialized healthcare professionals who do not exist in the private sector. You need people who recognize brain injuries. You need people who recognize how veterans deal with housing and education. And these are all the things that are at stake right now. And they're trying to basically break the system so that it has to be privatized. That's the way they're going to do this. So they're not going to say, we're going to cut 200 billion from the veterans budget. They'll just make it impossible to actually get those services, claim that the system isn't working, and then privatize it. That's what's happening as we speak.
That's the way they're going to try to do that. And again, they're talking about getting rid of 83,000 jobs with the VA. But there is a fight back. Kevin, did you want to jump in at all about the proposed or the cuts to services that this so-called president is trying to push through?
I mean, he pretty much nailed it. I said that in my speech at the rally, that the game plan.
Yeah, I'm just copying you.
I appreciate it. The game plan is to reduce the VA to back 7 years when there were less veterans, and you're proposing and you're going to implement these cuts, which is going to actually slow down services. What's interesting, though, what I didn't say that day is that in the same breath, he's also talking about bringing home 90,000 troops from Europe. So the VA is not even ready. It's not equipped to handle that. So now, in the event that all of these folks come in, they say it's almost like an engine. You take You compromise one piece of an engine, everything else is going to break down. And then you're going to say, "Oh, my engine's broke." And when the engine breaks, it's let's push in privatization. He's not the only president that wanted to privatize the VA. They've been wanting to privatize VA for the longest on both sides of the aisle. But because veteran issues is a bipartisan issue, it there was always a balance. He's he's obstructing that balance. And he's like saying, "Well, I have nothing to lose." This president is actually one of the biggest bullies, and I really am wholeheartedly believe that it's going to be veterans that is going to save our democracy.
Interesting. I must admit, I kind of had that feeling myself, the power and the commitment of the folks there. It was quite something, even though some of us are used to bigger rallies and more folks from DC at the rally than was there Friday, but the spirit and determination was very, very strong. Paul, did you feel that as well, that the veterans very well could make a major difference in where we're heading towards a positive direction?
Absolutely, because veterans are the people who fought to have the freedom that we all take for granted and rely on. And it's much harder to go after them than to attack college students or federal workers or professors or civil rights lawyers. It's very hard to say that veterans don't care about the Constitution or don't care about keeping America safe when they essentially gave everything to keep that exactly. And every politician on both sides of the aisle has to at least make a show of how much they care about veterans, whether they actually follow through or not. And it's important to be able to have veterans who are speaking out and basically calling out the false narratives about trying to create internal enemies so that they can grab for power. The veterans are the ones who have actually fought enemies. They know what an enemy looks like,
Mm-hmm.
and they are aware that it looks a lot more like this administration is the enemy trying to harm our freedoms than any undocumented person just trying to live their life or any LGBT person trying to serve in the military. Seems like we should be a lot more worried about them and the billionaires pushing all of this than any of those groups.
Absolutely. And one thing, Kevin, that was I was glad to hear at the very end of the rally, and I don't know, Paul or Kevin, if you heard the very end of the rally, several groups came on and said, this is just the beginning. This organizing of the veterans and standing up against this fascism, we're just getting started. So it wasn't this was not a meant to be a one-time only rally. It seems like the different veterans groups are committed to keeping up this struggle right now. Kevin, did you get that feeling, or did you know about that?
Yes. I in my speech, I started off in saying that this can't be a one and done.
Mm-hmm.
This just can't be a one-time thing. I've been the irony to this is everything that we stood in DC for. I went to the Manhattan VA in New York the day after the inauguration and brought up those same, like I almost had a crystal ball and projected that this was going to happen. And it was just a handful of people that showed up at a rally. And I stated, I said, do not repeal the PACT Act, do not privatize our benefits. And I said, actually, we need more than what we have now. Do not cut. If anything, we need more. Because even if none of this took place right now, the VA would be at a deficit. It's looked at as something that, because it's the second largest funded organization, we're looked at it as if we're spoiled. And I want to be clear, we've earned this. I'm a war veteran. I did not. This isn't a handout. It's earned. I had a very serious situation when I was aboard the USS Deo, as they were reading on my bio, where I participated major in saving the lives of 375 people. This is earned, not given away.
And this was where, Kevin? Where?
We were in the middle of the Gulf during the desert storm, and my ship caught on fire. I was on board the USS Deo, which was a Spruance class destroyer, and we had a major class Bravo fire, which is an oil fire. And right next door, the next compartment was the torpedo room. It took us 14 and a half hours to bring that fire under control. And once we had it under control, we put so much water in the aft part of the ship that it took us hours. We were really on a list. Took us hours to now dump that water from out the back, the aft part of the ship. So, no one knows what I go through when I go to sleep, and I could still dream, and in my dreams I still smell smoke. These are issues that I don't really talk about, but they're there. And
Yes.
most folks, one of my good friends, he's waited 40 years to be honorably discharged from the United States Marine Corps. And he went through, it took him to have to go to jail, to prison, to get treated. So the only thing that saved his life when he was in Beirut was that he went to go do the company's laundry. And he said, oh, well, I get to sleep in a real bed. And he went there, and his whole platoon was blown up. And he went through extreme post-traumatic stress disorder, and he also was suffering from survivor's remorse. So we don't know what that man goes to bed.
Right.
We don't know what made him start to self-medicate, and it took 40 years for the VA to say we should have never discharged you without treating you. So now you can't tell me these cuts. There are people like him that are that are hurting, that are bleeding and hurting, and you can't tell me these cuts is not going to just take their claims and sweep it underneath a rug. And
Absolutely.
It's the most un-American thing that anyone can do.
You're listening to Kevin Magette. Did I say your name correctly? Magette, Kevin Magette from New York City, founder and CEO of Veterans Action Now. And I heard him speak at the rally. I was so excited to hear him. And it was a miracle and a blessing that I was able to find him backstage and invite him to join us today. And hopefully this won't be the last time. And we're also joined by Paul Asadebe with the Federal Unionist Network. And Paul probably has to jump off soon, but we're glad to have him on now. And we're going to, in about 10 minutes, we'll have an announcement about a fun town hall meeting that's taking place tomorrow. Let's keep talking about this rally. Kevin, I was glad to hear you tell me that we can possibly in the future get access to the speeches of the whole rally, which was very inspiring. I think Paul's telling me I got to go. Thank you, Paul, for joining us. And again, Paul is pretty much a regular participant in this show, an activist with the Federal Unionist Network. But Kevin, I'm hoping that in the future we can perhaps play a lot of the speeches that took place. That was a rally, I guess, for many, many hours. Is that something that the general public could access?
Yes, actually, it's on. I believe it's on YouTube. You can actually go to Veterans Unite for America Unite, and it will pop up.
Is it that I know that?
I know I said I was going to send it to you, but
No. You don't.
I'll
need
send
to
it to you. I can send it to you tomorrow. After we Not tomorrow, after we hang up.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have been able to listen to the whole thing yet, but I'm thankful that it is going to be accessible to the public because, again, I must admit, I was surprised at how powerful those speeches were all day long. It started at 2 p.m. and went to, I think, after 6 p.m. So it was at least 3 hours. And the militancy of those speeches and the creativity and commitment that you heard from so many people. So, and also, I'm going to say the radicalism and the spirit of really fighting against fascism. I was glad to hear that. I was glad to hear people talking about fascism, and that's what the veterans are standing up against. There was a young lady who had a big sign that her dad fought against fascism in World War II. A little bit later in the hour, we're going to hear about what some Black women did during World War II that is not often told.
I guess before you do that, I want to. Veteran issues. We're fractured by the way. Like we're very we're very splintered and we're fragmented. I like to think it in terms of fractured. But we all have the same common denominator, which is being a veteran. The numerator, however, becomes I'm a Black veteran. I'm a World War II veteran. I'm a LGBTQ veteran. I'm a Asian veteran. I'm a Irish veteran. Those are the things that we don't necessarily have in common. And I want to let the listeners know this is a time that we should actually put our numerators to the side and figure out how to become a whole under just being under a veteran blanket, but just historically, when you're talking about what World War II women went through, I don't want to negate the fact that you were talking earlier about classism with veterans, and the VA had a certain classism for a very long time, and I believe there was a lawsuit actually being swung that they were marginalizing Black veterans when it came to claims as opposed to white ones, and it goes all the way really back to Harriet Tubman. A lot of people don't know Harriet Tubman was elevated to colonel in the United States Army. And when she moved upstate New York, she put in for her retirement papers and was denied. So, one of the things I would also love to see, and I know that there's a beautiful African-American Civil War Museum in D.C., is that we preserve, because that's something that I'm looking at the administration do with a very keen, sharp eye. It's that we preserve the history of Black Americans who fought. Crispus Attucks, while he was the first person that died in the Revolutionary War, he wasn't the only. There was over 100,000 Black men on both sides, on the British side and the American side, that died. And it's shameful that the only person we could think of is Crispus Attucks. So what I'm doing here in the Bronx is I'm uncovering a lot of that hidden history, because a lot of that history from the Revolutionary War happened right here in the Bronx, New York.
Absolutely. Again, you're listening to Kevin Megid, and he is the founder of the Veterans Action Now. We're very happy to have you on, Kevin, for the first time, but we're gonna have to bring you down to DC so you can meet our folks, right, Chuck? We're very close with the folks who started the African American Civil War Museum. Frank Smith, who is a veteran of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Council, and is expanding the museum. Will be reopening hopefully later this year, but we want you to meet these people that are part of our community. And when you come down, you can also meet Harriet Tubman's great grandniece, who is on these airwaves with us frequently, Ernestine Tina Wyatt. And I think it was last year, Chuck, I don't know if you remember, it was last year, this year, she actually received I don't know if the correct word is the award, but from Harriet Tubman. She went to a special event because, as I think you mentioned, Harriet Tubman was denied her pension. And
Right.
I think Ernestine Wyatt picked up something that represented her great aunt's pension.
Yeah.
So Chuck, did you want to jump in? And
Yeah, it was an earlier part of this year, if I remember correctly.
yes. And so we look forward, Kevin, to having you when the museum opens. Frank always has special events that we're often a part of. So we look forward to that museum being open. I don't know if Dante has called in. Magic Mike, were you able to call him? We wanted to announce, if he's not on the phone, to announce it or on the Zoom. Tomorrow, Tuesday, which is June 10th, from 5:30 to 7:30, there's going to be a special DC Town Hall, the Battle for Public Service. Federal workers on the front line, the Battle for Public Service, federal workers on the front line, Tuesday, June 10th, from 5:30 to 7:30. It's going to take place at the John Wesley AME Church on 14th Street Northwest. That's 1615 14th Street Northwest, John Wesley AME Church. This town hall is sponsored by not only a whole group of union activists under the Federal Unionist Network, but also quite a lot of community organizations. And apparently they're going to have a historian speaking there as well. And they're going to be, I know last week we had April Goggins join us and others. April, who is also the chair of the DC Black Lives Matter group. She's going to be involved with this forum tomorrow. That's tomorrow, June 10th, from 5:30 to 7:30. Okay, we almost, and I'm going to say, Kevin, you're welcome to stay on when we speak to our upcoming speaker, who is going to be talking about some things that Black women did that we never hear about. But before we go to LaDonna, let me ask you, Kevin, any additional words you want to say before we move?
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. The speaker, Dante, I need some help either from Dante or Mike. He's apparently waiting somewhere to talk about this rally or this town hall tomorrow. So I'm not sure why he can't get on. Mikey, are you able to call him? But otherwise, I'm not sure what's happening with our Zoom today. We seem to be having trouble. Dante, if you can't get on, we thank you for what you're doing. You're one of the organizers of this town hall tomorrow. And people can meet Dante and the others tomorrow. So I'm sorry, Kevin, your final words.
Yes, again, I just want to just echo what I said at the rally. It can't be a one and done. Veterans, we really have to begin to advocate for ourselves. That includes, but is not limited to strategizing and galvanizing. And that's exactly what I plan on doing on June 27th. Plan on standing on the north side of the George Washington Bridge on the New York side, because that the 27th of June is PTS Day, National PTS Day. Wow. And I'm going to be standing there with a bunch of veterans who actually suffer from PTSD and are suicidal, and demand that this administration not make these cuts. Our biggest problems as veterans is that for so long, for decades, we've gone unnoticed because our issues have been faceless. And so what I plan on doing, Veteran Action Now, our job is to humanize our existence and say, no, we're real people, and this is what we look like. So if you're in New York or anywhere in the surrounding area, join us on the George Washington Bridge, north side, from 11 a.m. to 1. 1
And
p.m.
Kevin, tell us how people can keep up with your organization.
Yep, best method is reach out to me. My email address is kevincmeggett@gmail.com, and that's spelled KEVIN, the letter C,
Okay.
MEGGETT @gmail.com.
Okay.
Or I could be reached
Okay.
at 614-735-5713.
Okay. I'm sorry. Thank you, Kevin. We
Thank
kind
you.
of have to rush a little bit now because Dante, at some point, we're going to have Dante jump in at the end of the show, hopefully to repeat about the town hall tomorrow. But I'm very excited. And Kevin, you're welcome to stay with us to welcome a sister that I just met, but I feel like I've known her my whole life. Donna Blaylock.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And you're calling all the way from Cleveland. And and I was very, very excited to meet her. I met her right there at the rally where we spent time over the weekend. And tell us briefly, Donna, your organization, I think is called Goddesses Blessing Goddesses.
That's correct. Yes.
But tell us, because we're short on time. Tell us how you met this 95-year, or tell us about the 95-year-old woman that you spent time with that told you some amazing stories about Black women, what they did during World War II. So jump right in and start to tell the story.
Joni. Listen, grand rising to you and your listeners in this day, okay? My name is Minister LaDonna and Blaylock, and we have a nonprofit organization called Goddesses Blessing Goddesses.org. For your listeners or anyone that might be interested, when President Obama's agenda was to end homelessness among veterans, we jumped right in, and we're a 501c3 organization. So we began immediately servicing veteran women here in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, as a daughter of a military legacy, a keeper of stories, and a voice for justice, we advocate for women veterans, and families here in Cleveland. So what happened was a veteran woman from World War II by the name of Azalea Oliver. She drove herself. She was 95 years old. She drove herself to our location. And she asked for me specifically, and we became friends. I was a daughter to, I was like a daughter to her. So she gave me her mission, and she told me about her experiences during World War II. Now, she was stationed in Fort Des Moines, and ironically, she said, if you ever are given the opportunity to go to Washington, tell the story. Now, this is oral histories that she was sharing with me, and I am so privileged and delighted to be able to thank you very much for inviting me on your station today. For 20 years, our nonprofit has stood with veteran women and their children in Cleveland, Ohio, not for applause, not for recognition, but because we had to. We partnered with the Department of Veteran Affairs. We earned the trust of the combined federal campaign, but we led with our heart. Okay, it was not just a community call. We call it family, because when one of us is in pain, all of us should feel it. Mm-hmm. Now, you see, I come from a long bloodline of warriors. My husband, my father, my uncles, my grandfathers, they were all military people. So we have fought in every American war, from the front lines to the forgotten stories. And in the middle, yes.
I'm sorry, LaDonna. I'm going to ask you because we have 10 minutes.
Time.
Yeah. So
Okay.
just tell, and I'm just going to ask you, tell us real quickly your relationship to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay, my grandfather, he's originally from Oklahoma, and I am a chronicled descendant of Black Wall Street.
Okay.
So I was
okay. I'm going to keep moving on because you shared a lot with me. I'm trying to
I know.
help. So
you're going to have to have
us,
me back.
Okay, but right now we still have maybe 10 minutes left, maybe 5. Tell us about this sister who was 95 years old.
Yeah.
The story that she shared with you about the Black women during World War II. That's what I'd like you to focus on in the time we have left.
Okay. Well, these women, they were smart. They created a directory, and it was dedicated to their commanding officer of the 6th 888 Postal Battalion of England and France. And this dedication was a directory. And I'm so thrilled and honored because Azalea Oliver gave me this histories. It's called Her Stories. That's what it is. It's called Her Stories. And it was to honor that Charity Adams Early. That was their commander officer at the time. Now, what happened was, and still, after it took 80 years for this country to honor the 6888. Finally,
and what is 6888 stand for?
That's the recognizing the 80 years to recognize the Black women who processed over 17 million pieces of mail during World War II, lifting the morale of an entire Allied force. So because we are family, she shared this with me. I have this directory, and I'm willing to share it and press forward with her message and experiences of what happened to them during that particular time frame, how their experiences, they all got together. They were smart enough to put their stories. There were a lot of these women were in their 20s, you see. So interestingly, she shared this with me, and I'm happy to come back in the future, and we could talk about some of the stories that and legacy that they left me, at my disposal.
Okay, and you shared with me, LaDonna, which I'm sure some of the listeners know about it, but apparently there's a movie that just came out, Tyler Perry, that talks about these women. So tell our listeners about that film.
Well, that film echoes the righteous fire. To me, the most powerful moment was when they felt that when the main commander, who was Caucasian, was disconcerted that the mail wasn't being recognized and established like it should have been. One of the powerful moments of that film, and I quote the actress, her name is Kerry Washington. She said, "Over my dead body, sir." And that was the highlight of the entire movie. So I would recommend everybody to go see that because it tells the story of how these women were treated within World War II, what they experienced. Not all heroes wear capes, but these women were my heroes, okay? So since I was a little girl, I knew I was born to fight. I saw myself in Wonder Woman and Charlie's Angels. Remember them? So not because I looked like them, obviously, but because I believed, like them, that only love can save the world. So
and LaDonna, tell us again the name of the film. I believe you shared with me that it was on Netflix. So I think it's so. Tell people the name of the film. So if they will want to learn about these women that we're not hearing about otherwise, they can easily do so now.
It's called The 6888. The 6888. And
Yes.
it's on Netflix, and it's out now, and it's interesting. You'll love that movie, and I hope everybody gets a chance to see this movie. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
And LaDonna, I'm gonna see if our guest who was supposed to come on earlier, Dante, has to leave soon. Dante, can you just briefly share about the town hall meeting that's taking place tomorrow?
Yeah, well, hello to listeners. Thanks for having me on. Just briefly, we're having a federal workers town hall, really discussing how to save our public services and defending our federal workers on the front lines against these attacks on our jobs and our public services. And it's endorsed by some major unions, the SEIU, and I want to express my solidarity with them in LA, who just got their leader arrested around these immigration raids taking place. There's a major rally happening soon in about 15 minutes from the DOJ, but tomorrow night, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the John Wesley Amy Zion Church in Logan Circle, we will be hosting a 2-hour town hall featuring some great speakers from the trade union movement and folks that are involved with public sector unions and the Federal Unionist Network. So we invite your listeners to join us and participate and invite their neighbors as well. So thank you for having me on.
And you're also having a historian speak, correct?
Yes, Joe McCartan from Georgetown University, who is a labor historian and also has written a lot of recent articles on the public sector union fight historically, going back to PATCO and the air traffic controller strike that Reagan busted during that period. But we're in a worse period right now under Trump, so folks should put that in the context of what we're dealing with and connected to all the things happening, not just here in the U.S., but around the world as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, again, that's tomorrow, Tuesday, June 10th. The Battle for Public Service, Federal Workers on the Front Line. Tuesday, June 10th, 5:30 to 7:30, John Wesley AME Church on 14th Street, Northwest, 1615 14th Street. Thank you very much, Dante, and keep up the great work. Dante is also with the Federal Unionist Network and a federal employee. Thank you, Dante. See you tomorrow. So let's go back to our guest. We have a minute or two left before we leave, LaDonna. And again, anything else? You have about a minute left, LaDonna. We're going to go out with a song that LaDonna and I heard. There is a sister by the name of Michelle Lancaster, who worked very closely with Sweet Honey in the Rock and Bernice Reagan, as well as In Process. She sang this song yesterday. And not only that, but she said she told us she saw the film that LaDonna just talked about 6 times. So if she saw that film 6 times, I know that some of us may want to see it once. I had never heard of the film before, but I'm glad to hear about it. I'm very glad and honored to have met my dear friend now, LaDonna Blaylock. And your final comment for right now, and we will have you back again in the future, but for anything about the importance of women, and particularly Black women, fighting in World War II, or whatever you would like to say before you leave us.
Well, like your song, the women of World War II and women all over this country, we fly. We know how to fly. Now, we We will fight for our veterans. We will honor our ancestors. We will speak up for every widow, every wounded soldier, every forgotten name carved into this country's bones. And I just want to say that's what we need to do.
Absolutely. And we're going to go so we can hear this song, Women Who Fly by Nona Hendryx. I just want to give a shout out to my own mom, who's an ancestor who worked during World War II in the shipyards in New York City, one of the first 10 women among 12,000 men and organized women into the Union. So we honor all those women who stood out there and was fighting for freedom. And we still have a ways to go. Let's hear what Nona Hendryx has to say. Women Who Fly. Thank you very much, Magic Mike. Stay tuned for Elliot with the blues. And again, we will see a lot of you June 22nd at our fabulous, fabulous event at Malcolm X Park from 12 noon till 9 p.m. And you'll be hearing about it. So let's hear Women Who Fly.
And my feelings are somewhere inside, beating hard against skin. What's keeping the pain in and alive? I'm as hard as a rock, but my heart won't stop keeping time. 'Cause it's not made of steel, and the walls that I built